Muslim group calls on Ottawa to lift cap on program allowing Gazans to flee to Canada. This is the Great White North Report. So in the wake of the Israeli-Hamas war, Muslim groups in Canada want Canada to lift a cap that's on the number of Gazan refugees that can flee to Canada. Currently, the government is accepting 1,000 applications from Canadians' relatives seeking a way out of Gaza, because as everyone knows, Hamas does not care what happens to Gaza as long as they survive, and Israel has a right to defend itself and is winning the war against Hamas. Unfortunately, the Gazans and the Gazan Strip has to suffer because of it. You can blame Hamas for that one. So the National Council of Canadian Muslims is calling on the federal government to remove the cap on the number of Gazans who can seek refuge with their Canadian extended family members from the violence in the Gaza Strip. Keyword extended family. So this means this isn't just your parents, your grandparents, and maybe aunts and uncles and first cousins. This is like second, third, fourth, fifth cousins out of the woodwork. Who knows how many generations. Anybody you can claim is related to you. And that's not good. So the Special Extended Family Program is set to launch this week. Palestinian Canadians pleaded for months for help from the federal government to rescue their loved ones from the Israeli-Hamas war. Well, it'd be nice if you called out Hamas in the first of all. Then we might be willing to listen. But no, we've seen tons of pro-Hamas demonstrations across Canada. And some of them are pretty violent when they get confronted by others. So this program is going to allow a maximum of 1,000, which will allow them to take refuge in Canada for 3 years with their families. So this program offers visas to a maximum of 1,000 Gazans, which would allow them to take refuge in Canada for 3 years if their families are willing to support them financially during that time. So in other words, they can't be a burden on the Canadian system. They have to be supported by their family here in Canada, which in this current situation, with the cost of living here, is not a good idea. It'll actually be cheaper to send money to them from Canada to Gaza once everything gets settled down. Now, personally, I don't want them here. Why would I bring in 1,000 people, or more if they lift this cap? Why would I want to bring 1,000 people who are very anti-Semitic and will only join the ranks of the pro-Hamas group who have become very politicized? This has been a very, very polarizing and politicizing process. The amount of demonstrations, we didn't see this when Russia invaded Ukraine. We didn't see this amount of protest with violence. There have been clashes between pro-Hamas and pro-Israelis. Schools are even afraid to address the issue themselves head on. So why would I want to bring more of that here? Because these people are going to bring that baggage with them. So it shows that Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada will close the program to new requests after it receives and begins processing the first 1,000 applications or after a year has elapsed. So we're going to only take 1,000, which I think is too many. We shouldn't be taking in your fourth or fifth cousins or whatever. But the Council of Canadian Muslims, a national advocacy group, says it has already been in contact with more than 1,000 people who have reached out about getting their families out of Gaza. Why not try getting them to another Muslim country? Because those Muslim countries don't want them. No one really wants them. And they say there should not be a cap, said Uthman Quick, the organizer's director of communications. Well, when you can't trust them, because how many Hamas people are going to get through that net? The cap takes into consideration the volatility on the ground and the difficulty that Canada and like-minded countries are having in moving people from Gaza to Egypt, immigration spokesperson said. Because Egypt doesn't want any of them to go through because they're afraid they're going to disappear and cause problems within Egypt. The same thing happened in Jordan. The same thing happened in Iraq, Kuwait, Syria, and even Lebanon. Ottawa has no control over who can cross into tightly controlled Rafah border crossing between the Gaza Strip and Egypt on a given day, and even getting Canadian citizens out of the war zone has proven to be a slow and difficult process because Egypt doesn't want them. They have closed the border completely. Even foreign aid has a hard time getting across the border. The Israelis have lots of foreign aid trucks ready, but it's such a slow process. UNRWA is very corrupt, and a lot of what's aid that's destined for the people actually falls in the hands of Hamas. And the majority of Canadians don't really want these people here. At least not that I know of. Now, of course, CBC always parrots the Hamas line of how many people are killed in this war. So as of this article, 21,900 Palestinians killed according to local authorities, which means 2/3 of the Palestinians have been women and children. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry says. Hamas-run, so take it with a grain of salt. They don't count. They're counting their military casualties as well in that count. And I'm going to tell you right now, during World War II, Canadians killed far more German citizens during bombing runs than Israelis killing now. The US, the British, and the Canadians and other allies killed far more German citizens in 1944-45 than what's going on in Gaza. Just ask Cologne or Dresden. So Toronto immigration lawyer Yamini Ansari believes the CAF vastly underestimates the number of people who need help. If you really want to help them, help get rid of Hamas. That would be the best thing you could do. Because the cycle of violence is never going to stop if you keep having Hamas, Hezbollah, and other like-minded individuals or groups within the area. It's time to face realpolitik, be thankful for what you've been given, and build a brighter future. It doesn't include violence. So she says it's a case of, is your family going to live or are they going to die? No, they don't necessarily have to die if they go to those. The Israelis are telling them to get out of the way, stay there. And when the war is over, if you help them get rid of Hamas, it would be over quicker. That's the key thing. The sooner Hamas is destroyed, the sooner the Gazans get back to living and try and build something better, something more peaceful, which I don't think is going to happen. So the Council of Canadian Muslims, they've called for a ceasefire to put an end to the violence, but a ceasefire without the destruction of Hamas is not going to work. Any ceasefire now will work in Hamas's favor. Now, Quick was saying most people in Gaza don't want to leave. They want to know that if they do flee to Canada, they'll have the right to return home when the conflict is over. Yeah, I'd say they can return. Because Egypt doesn't want it, and Israel withdrew from it in 2006. So yes, they can return. They should return. If they come to Canada, they get out in 3 years. Even sooner, once it's over. They can go rebuild their lives. Am I in favor of this policy? No, not at all. And I'm definitely not in favor of lifting the cap. We don't need to be flooded with refugees right now. We've taken in so many refugees over the past 10 years. If anything, I would take the children out, but not the adults. Like we did in World War II, where a lot of children were evacuated from major cities. Some of them came to Canada, but were then sent back when the war was over. But other than that, I'm not in favor of this policy at all. And it'll only cause more chaos in the future. Look what's happening in countries in Europe right now. The United Kingdom, Denmark, the Netherlands, Sweden. So I think it's time we take a long, hard look at our immigration policies and become a lot more selective. But anyway, that's just my thought. So any Canadians out there, let me know what you guys think of this policy. Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? Should we lift the cap? Leave comments in the comments section. Until next time, this has been the Great White North Report. I'm in love with the